Hey Ecofictologists, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lovis and we are here in my fantastic hanging egg chair for another author updates episode. This week I'm super excited because I'm going to be talking about one of my other projects for the Serial Writers Tag. A couple weeks ago, another Authortuber that I follow, Brittany Wang, posted a video on her publishing strategy for publishing her fantasy serial under the Serial Writers Tag that she and Leigh-an created to bring writers of serial fiction together. Both of their channels will be linked below, so definitely check them out. I wanted to jump on this tag because I'm also writing a serial and I was super excited to meet other people who are writing in this format. Before we go any further, I think I should probably clarify what a serial is, what I mean by a serial. The easiest way to describe it is kind of like a TV series. So it's a series of shorter storytelling segments. Each one has its own plot and arc, but usually there's also like an ongoing arc throughout a season, for example. There's ongoing character development, the relationships between characters, maybe there's a central conflict that's pulling you through the series, etc. This is different from a standard novel series, mostly because of the length. So each installment would be maybe either short stories, so around the 10,000 mark on average, or maybe they're novella length, so they're like 25,000 to 30,000 words. It's been really interesting to see all of the other Serial Writers Tag videos because so far all of the ones that I've seen have approached the format differently. They've split their stories up differently. Just like not all TV shows have the same structure, so too not all serial written fiction needs to have the same structure. And I'm going to be approaching it from another direction again. So I guess we'll just jump right into the questions. I should probably tell you the name of my serial. That would probably be a good place to start. The name of my serial is the GICEI Index, spelled G-I-C-E-I, but pronounced Geeky. It's an acronym for what? You don't know yet, but you will find out. And the name doesn't make much sense yet, but it will. Does it sound nerdy? I sure hope so. Let's get into the questions. Number 1, what was the inspiration for your serial? So the answer to that is kind of twofold. First of all, I don't know if I would have thought of serial fiction as a format that I would like to write in if I didn't have this channel. Because my first spark of inspiration came when I was trying to find a creative way to use ecofiction as a literal science communication tool. On my channel, I talk a lot about how I think ecofiction is a science communication ninja, because you read it and you get swept up in the story and the characters and you don't realize you're learning something, but you are. And one of my goals on the channel was to make science not so scary for the public, to make it accessible, to translate it into language that they can understand. And so I was looking for a way of communicating new science that's being published in a fun and engaging way that would get people excited in the way that scientists get excited about this. And I really wanted to use ecofiction to do that. And so I thought, well, maybe I should try my hand at short stories. Maybe I should dabble a little bit. Maybe if I can incorporate things like conservation science, indicator species, land degradation, things like that, into a format that people enjoy, that might be really engaging. The second part of the inspiration came when I was trying to figure out what format this idea was going to take. And I've always loved TV shows like CSI, Bones, Numbers, NCIS, anything sciencey and episodic and kind of procedural. I've always loved it. They have a case of the week, they have a team of people, each with their own strengths. It's very sciencey and nerdy, which I love. And each episode is kind of self-contained, but you come back because you love the characters. This is what I meant by different structures. These TV shows do have ongoing threads. They have cases they never solved, or like a serial killer they never caught, or a personal backstory to one of the characters, like in Bones. So they do have these ongoing threads, but most episodes can be enjoyed on their own. This is in comparison to other TV series where each episode is like a chunk of a bigger story, a well-rounded and satisfying chunk that is suited for that kind of format, but it's not a complete story on its own. So in the first kind, you kind of come back for the characters' internal struggles and the character development and the relationships between them. And in the second kind, you kind of have a plot or a central conflict that's pulling you through the serial. Let me know down in the comments if that made any sense whatsoever. It makes so much sense in my head, but I don't know if I said it very well, so just let me know down in the comments if you follow me. So that was kind of my inspiration. I wanted to communicate newly published science in an engaging and accessible way. God, this video is going to be so long if I ramble like that on every question. Number 2, what is your pitch and tagline? Okay, so none of this is actually written, right? So this is still an idea that is percolating in my head that I want to do. So this is early doors, and I don't have a completed pitch or tagline yet, but I will give it a go. Let's see how it goes. I'm gonna read it because I haven't memorized this. Following a sassy scientist and a government agent with a chip on her shoulder, the GICEI Index is a character-driven educational drama about using indicator species and conservation science to place blame where it truly belongs and take steps towards a more sustainable world. And the tagline is, all the indicators are there if you are willing to look past yourself to see them. Oh God, no one is going to want to read this. I promise it's going to be cool, even though that pitch is riddled with cliches and it needs work. I promise it'll be cool. It sounds so nerdy right now, but it will also be nerdy, so. Number 3, tell us about your world and conflict. Oh boy, here we go. Get comfortable. So the unique hurdle or difficulty that I am facing is that I want to represent real-world science. That means I need to have a world where things work the way that they work here. But I don't necessarily want to use the real world. I'm an eco-fantasy writer, and I love that genre because of the implausibility of fantasy, but also because sometimes the real world sucks. And so in this case, I want to explore real-world science, but I don't want it to come with all of the political baggage that science comes with right now. I'd have to relate it to real people and government bodies, and I want to make that stuff up. That's not fun for me. So what I'm actually doing is I'm creating a very Earth-like world. So the shape is the same, we orbit the same kind of sun, the atmosphere is the same, we assume that evolution happened very similarly, and ecosystems function in the way that we understand them to function. So our scientific foundation is still applicable. The land masses are different for logistical reasons that I won't get into right now, but don't you worry, I will be world building this sucker on this channel, so you can go through that journey with me. So I create the political structures, the cultures, and the customs. The technological advancement is pretty much the same, so I don't want to be able to just explain things away with better tech. Basically, I don't want to change so much about the science that I am basing each episode on that it stops being relevant and educational. So all of that to say, my world is very Earth-like, but you won't recognize anything in it. Ecologically, it's very Earth-like. Socially, it is not. Okay, that's the world. So, the conflict. I am assuming that the people of this world have acted much in the way that we have and have screwed up their environment. But I'm also assuming that they eventually take action. In order to keep myself in check and not ramble forever about the motivations of each character, I'm just going to say that we have a team consisting of a scientist and her assistant and a government agent. And together they're working on improving something called the Global Initiative for Climatic and Environmental Impact Score, or Geeky for short, because that's a mouthful, before a certain government deadline. I know that's very vague, and I don't want to give you all the goods now, but just know that if they miss this deadline, then their government and their country loses financial aid, international power and standing, because how you rank in international politics is directly related to the effort that you put into reducing your impact on the environment. This is my hope for the world. I have made it so. And the team does this by using conservation science and indicator species, which are species that might show us if there's a problem in an ecosystem. So, for example, if you have a coral reef and you have no sharks of any kind, then that might tell you that's not a very healthy reef, because potentially the fish populations are not healthy enough to sustain top predators. And that could be because way down the food chain, something was pushed out of whack, some kind of predator-prey relationship potentially, and it just dominoes. So the lack of sharks indicates that there is potentially something wrong with this system. So our scientist uses these indicator species to make links between trends and identify projects or processes that are causing ecological harm. The government agent does what government agents do to facilitate all the things, and the assistant acts as a bit of a mediator between the two who don't always see eye to eye. So that tells you a little bit about the conflict, and of course each episode will have its own conflict. This is the case of the week format. So there's a mystery and they need to solve it, and then they have to get the solution past their bureaucratic bosses who are really only worried about their bottom line. Okay, that was quite a long answer to that question, sorry guys, but I get really excited, so moving on. Number 4. Oh man, we're only on number 4. Why did you decide to make this story a serial? I suppose because of what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to reflect science being published now, like in maybe a few months before that episode comes out. I wanted it to be of the moment and relevant. And that doesn't really lend itself to traditional publishing timelines or even self-publishing timelines if I were to go at it from a novel length approach. The other thing about this project is that I wanted it to be something where I could just continuously bring science to the public. So I don't necessarily have an end point in sight, and that kind of lends itself pretty well to episodic formats like this. That's why there are like 15 seasons of CSI. The cast or the situation or kind of the status quo of things might change over the seasons, so it doesn't get repetitive or boring, but the core of the serial doesn't really need to change. So I don't have to know the end, and I don't have to stop writing it if I don't want to. I'm going to do the next couple questions out of order, so I'm going to do the resources question first and then talk about plotting, because the resources will inform my plotting. So number 5, what writing resources are you using? The first resource I'm using is Shonda Rhimes' masterclass for writing for television. It's a brilliant masterclass and she gives so much valuable advice. I just learned so much watching this. Masterclass is a wonderful platform in general. And Shonda Rhimes breaks down the kind of 5-act structure and what should be in your pilot and how to develop the characters and how to have people coming back for every episode. So loosely, I will be following Shonda Rhimes' advice from her masterclass. I'm also piecing together any resources that I can find on writing serialized fiction. I recently found an episode on the Mythcreants podcast where they talk about episodic fiction, and that was really useful to kind of like put into words what I was trying to say. If you have any resources that suit this, definitely pop those down in the comments and I will 100% have a look. I'm a sponge. I want all the information. Okay, number 6, how are you plotting your serial? So, I am looking for the easiest way of plotting these, writing these, because this is not the only thing that I do. I'm a full-time PhD student. I'm in my last couple months, so frazzled as. And even once I finish my PhD, I'm going almost straight into a postdoc position, which will also be full-time. So I need to be strategic with my time, basically. And like I said, I want to keep the science relevant, so there can't be a huge gap between publication of the article and publication of the episode. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the 5-act structure, and say I have a novella-length episode of 25,000 words, then each act gets 5,000 words. And if I say I have 2 scenes in each act-ish, then each scene gets 2,500 words, which is about 5 typed pages of writing. I have my A plot, which is my case of the week, and then I have my B plot, which are my character developments, the relationship between my characters, all the backstory, all of that good stuff. Most scenes will have to address both the A plot and the B plot to really maximize my use of the few scenes that I have available to me. But sometimes I'll dedicate an entire scene to just one or the other, depending which is more important at the time. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a kind of template, a framework of each scene. So I know what goes where, I know what I have to focus on, I know that I won't lose my B plot somewhere. Because in reality, the readers are going to be coming back for the characters. Since there is no through plot so much, like there's no tension that pulls you to the next episode, the reason you come back is because you like the characters and you want to see what they get up to. So my B plot has to be solid. The point of this template is so that I can write some of these scenes ahead of time. So I can basically write out my B plot and all the framing and framework and everything ahead of time, then find the scientific articles that I want to put in it and slot them in and write the scenes that are specific to the case of the week. This is kind of my strategy of getting ahead of the game. It might sound very formulaic, it might sound like it will get repetitive and boring, but I'm going to do my best to avoid that. But until I get better at writing like the wind, so I can write an episode and have it edited and ready to go out in a month or 2, this is my strategy. Last question, number 7. When are you planning to publish? Oh man. Well, like I said, this is not the only thing I'm doing right now. And this idea, although I've been thinking about it for quite a long time, is by no means fleshed out. I've basically done a bunch of world building and some kind of nebulous plotting, some hand waving. I think I'm going to make this my Camp Nano project in July. I wanted to work on it in April, but my first draft of my eco-fantasy trilogy is just staring at me. So I can't work on it in April. I have to get the first draft of that done. So this will be my July Camp Nano project. I would love to say that this serial would see the light of day in 2021, but to be honest, if I even get the episodes out to beta readers by the end of the year, I will be pretty thrilled. So I'll do a bit of hand waving and say next year, hopefully, but I don't know. The way I'm viewing this project is for me to expand my readership, to give people a taste of my writing and what they can expect from me, and to improve my craft. So I'm planning on publishing these episodes either on this channel or on my website, which will exist by then, or on a platform like Wattpad. I haven't quite decided yet, maybe all 3, probably all 3. But in any case, the episodes will be free, and I'll try and do a fast release, probably 1 a month, and then follow it up with discussions about the science in each episode. Maybe once I have the whole season done, I will get them all nicely printed and put them together in a box set, which I can then self-publish. But I haven't thought about it that much. Like I said, this is still very much in its infancy. Oof, okay, that was it. If you're still watching, good on you. Thanks for sticking around. I know that was a lot. This is my idea for my serial called the GICEI Index. I hope you've enjoyed this trip into my nerdy brain, and let me know down in the comments if you like the sound of what I'm planning or if what I've said has sent you running for the hills. If you want to learn more about ecofiction and how it can be used as a science communication tool, if you want to follow along with my world building journey as I world build this thing and write it, then make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you get notified every time I post new content. I post on Wednesdays with some occasional bonus content on Mondays. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty exhausted after this video, so I'm gonna go get a cup of tea or something, and I will see you next week, Ecofictologists.